welcome back to the Superist show ever. We have a full panel today. But first, Daniel, how are you?
I am just as giddy as a little schoolboy, and I will tell you why.
Yeah,
Tonight's show it has my favorite things in the whole world. Drugs and my friends. No, seriously though. No, I'm really really excited because we've been trying to do this for a while now, and we do have two guests tonight. I guess Sabrina is a guest, but we have two of my favorite individuals from the fairer sex, and that's the truth. Like the in my life, there are two living females who've had the biggest impact on my life. And it happens to be Sabrina for her long-term friendship and fidelity and just believing in my insanity, and it has Megan for getting me addicted to drugs. No, just that's a joke. uh, Megan Baer is, I always say that she's my medicine woman because she is, and she's the one who is responsible for this whole mess. She's the one that introduced me into plant-based medicine beyond cannabis, into that entire world. So I don't want to waste too much time. And whenever me and you were talking before the show, Megan, I had asked you to give me a bio, and we were just kind of like, well, what? But this entire show will be your bio. So this is the first time you've been on the Super show ever, Megan. So say hello.
Hi there. I'm so happy to be on the Superist show ever.
And as custom, our episode number is
Oh, it's 125.
125. Dylan, you got that noted?
125 noted.
All right. And Sabrina Black is with us also. Hey, Sabrina.
Hey, Crumpton, what's up?
She comes in with a bong rip. Doing pretty good.
That's fitting.
Very fitting. So, before we really get into it, and Megan, I had listened to whenever we first started talking about bringing you on to do a podcast, you had said, "Oh, well, I've done one before," and we listened to it, which was way more eloquent than what we're going to do here, me and Dylan, anyway. So I don't want to like rehash what you did in that podcast because I think it would be more beneficial if we just included the link in the boxes wherever this goes out so that people can go back and listen to that to get all of it. But I do kind of want to touch on a lot of that in this particular episode. And of course, Sabrina is also in the Cannasense Collective, which is, we're all advocates of plant-based medicine. So she has benefited greatly from plant-based medicine.
I would like to say, before we start, I am actually a skeptic of plant-based medicine. So this will be fun.
Yeah, this is going to be a real cool, interesting conversation, and I'm probably going to sit back for a lot of it because I think you guys will really just enjoy having the discussion amongst yourselves, really. But I do want to first say how I came across you, Megan. Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so and Sabrina can attest that this is the truth, and this is why these are the two most important females and that are alive on this planet right now in my life is. Funny story. So it was, I had never tried anything beyond cannabis as far as plant-based medicine goes until after my mom went to the great beyond to go to the eternal catfish lake in the sky. And Sabrina was there with me for that and supported me through that transition. And having already lost my father, almost 10 years prior and developing PTSD, I knew that I was going to have to go through some very extreme measures after losing my mom, or I was probably just going to end up under a bridge drinking myself to death. That was probably going to be the course that my life took. And so, as I have said before, I had to jump out of a spiritual airplane without a parachute. And as fate and circumstance would have it, I started doing a lot of research from Johns Hopkins University and a lot of TED Talks about recovering from CPTSD, anxiety, and chemical addiction by means of things like the San Pedro plant, ayahuasca, psilocybin, LSD, things like that. Now, I was a very proud DARE student. So I was like Dylan for a long time. I'd never tried anything like that. So, but I could not shirk off the results that people were getting, you know.
Yeah. So I actually do want to clarify. I'm not in the DARE camp of ban all drugs. Absolutely not. I just have a personal thing where I don't want to do it. I don't advocate for doing it, but if you want to do it, you should be allowed to do it.
Whatever, sissy. But I knew that if I were going to start going into those waters, I wanted to do it correctly, and I wanted to seek out someone who had experience in it and who respected the plant for what it was, or the plants for what they are, and approached it from a very spiritual point of view. So through one interesting synchronistic connection to the other, the Native American Oklahoma Church popped up, and there it came across my awareness that there was some old, wise, in my imagination, wrinkly Native American shaman woman somewhere in Georgia that would introduce you through ritual work to San Pedro, the San Pedro cactus. So in my head, Megan, before I met you, this was an anaphylactic shock. I had been playing the Legend of Zelda games, and there's like this old Native American-ish type wise person who's like 200 years old, and that's what I had in my imagination because I'd never seen you before.
Oh my God.
Right. So this is what I'm expecting, you know. So I traveled up to where you were doing your ceremonies, and the entire night before I actually met you and partook, I didn't get a wink of sleep because I knew intuitively, I was like, this medicine woman's going to ask me like what I'm here for. She's going to be like, what are you doing this for? You know what I mean? And I got to have a viable answer, you know, because I'm not there, you know, I'm there for a specific purpose, but how do I vocalize it into a sentence? And sure enough, when I did meet you, I was blown away because you weren't the lady from Zelda, which I'm sure we'll have you know, pictures of you in the slideshow so people will see how incorrect I was and whenever I got there. But I remember whenever you did ask me, you asked me, you know, what I was looking for, what I was seeking, what was it that I needed from the San Pedro plant, and my answer, I remember it just like it was just 2 seconds ago, was I'm looking for my North Star, right? And that's how we met. So from that point, the way that I was introduced to San Pedro through ritual, and through your guidance and the guidance of your daughters through a ritual, I was like, okay, these guys are approaching it the way that makes sense to me. That this isn't something that is to be done recreationally or just willy-nilly or something to do on a weekend just for kicks and giggles. They are approaching this with respect and with a goal of, I think that you tell people it's a portion of healing. Is that right?
I have never said that to
Really?
my knowledge.
Are you sure you said that, Megan?
Okay, you know, Daniel, I have such a terrible memory. Yes, sir, I did say that.
But no, so that's how we met, and like I said, it had a profound effect on me. The entire ceremony was just beautiful. We had it was a small group of people in that particular day, but it was a beautiful ceremony, and it was you said in the last podcast that you did that a lot of gurus who've come up to you have like, I have meditated for years, you know, and have practiced to get into this particular space, but with you mean to tell me you can just take a dose of San Pedro tea and you're right there? And that was exactly my impression of it.
Wow. Yes. Exactly.
So from that, I mean, that experience for me was a kicking off point in my life towards what I'm doing now, which I think is, you know, if I may say so, is benefiting a lot of people. And it stems from being able to go through your doorway into this world. So what I would like to know is, you know, as you said in the other podcast, tell us, if you don't mind, if you want to talk about how you got to a place where you were introduced to it, why you were introduced to it, you know, tell us how you met how you met the spirit.
Okay, I love that, and I love hearing your story about that, Daniel. So it is also very interesting. I feel like, you know, we each get called if you do, you know, and Dylan, if you never get called, it just doesn't matter. It's like totally whatever for each person.
Yeah.
I definitely felt um, called by like a person through this plant. It came through my sister, my older sister, had come across this plant medicine in the Bay Area when a good friend of hers was dying, she from cancer, and she was like definitely dying. She was, you know, in hospice, and she gathered some of her closest friends, of which my sister was one, together, and another person who had been offering San Pedro in that area to have her people come together and have this sacrament with her, so that she could. It just something she wanted. And so my sister got introduced to it that way. And she was probably, then she got, it really helped her so much. It really lit her up in such a way and really helped her. She got super into it, let's just say. And so about a year or so after she got involved with that sacrament and sort of regular, almost monthly or maybe more than that ceremonies, I wasn't initially interested because my sister at that time was just kind of going from peak experience to the next. I was like, oh, okay, that's just your the new craze in your life. She was an ultra marathon runner and just really somebody who kept taking things to big extremes. So I was like, oh yeah, it's her next thing. But a year after she got involved with this sacrament, I noticed really big changes in her for the growth, maturity, we had a better relationship. She was having a better life. She was sorting out some of the crazy areas of her life, and it was really noticeable. So that sort of got me more willing. It softened me a little bit, like, if it could help my sister in these ways, I wonder if it could help me too. And at that time in my life, what I wanted help with was sort of some ongoing depression that just sort of manifested as a lot of low level unhappiness. Like, I was really mean to myself. I had chronic negative thoughts that I had had my entire life, and mostly directed towards myself. And it was exhausting, and being me. And so, I was basically functional. I think I had 3 young-ish children at that time, and a marriage relationship, but I just couldn't shake my general unhappiness, and I had done a lot of therapy, and that really didn't really help me very much, but I had been doing that for probably 20 years.
What type of therapy, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, just different types of talk therapy, and finding people that I could afford, and just people in my town. And really, it wasn't very useful to me. It's like sitting, I talked a lot about, if you all have ever tried therapy, I'm not, no mean to be down on it, but from my new vantage point, it's like, it makes sense that it wasn't that helpful, because all I did was talk about what I consider to be the problem. And just got a good audience for that for a really long time. So, I couldn't get any enlightenment or any upliftment. I couldn't catch a break from the thoughts that I was thinking. And, nothing was, it was like, you blame this person, blame yourself, blame that person, blame your childhood, none of it was giving me any liberation from those thoughts that I was thinking. And I never did try prescription therapy or medication. I never received a diagnosis. I just wasn't interested. They may have given me one. I never received it. So I went.
Yes. So I became interested in going to all the way from Athens, Georgia to Berkeley, California for a San Pedro ceremony with my sister and her community out there. It felt like a really big deal at the time. It felt like having a lot of trust in my sister, and it was an epic moment in my life. My first ceremony at that time. They were doing all night long ceremonies, and so everything, the setup was for epicness. But during that ceremony, with a large quantity of San Pedro tea in my body, I experienced relief from my negative thoughts about myself for the first time in my conscious life. And boy, did that feel good. It felt so good. Man, it felt like, oh man, I love being me. It's so great. I'm so glad I get to be me, and wow, everything's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And, that was just a really sweet and special moment in my life. And as I came back into my life in Athens, Georgia, and those epic feelings, they do fade as the plant influence leaves your body and your regular thoughts sort of come back into your mind. And I went back to my life and my kids and my husband. But I was at that point, it was like, okay, now that I know that I can feel like that, sign me up. It gave me, like what you were saying, Daniel, a North Star. Like, oh my God, for a while, San Pedro was necessary for me in my trajectory for having a happy life and being a happy person, to help me to clear my negative thoughts over a long period of time. I worked with that sacrament pretty a lot for about a decade, but it showed me where I was headed. Like, you can this is you, this is your consciousness unobstructed by all the crazy thoughts that you think, Megan Baer. And I was like, okay, I want that. How do I get there? And it all of it. Then there's a lot of work to do outside of those ceremonies, but a big dose of that medicine in a ceremonial setting was a big part of the path that got me to where I am today, where it's like I could never, I don't need that sacrament in my body anymore. I could just, I'm good. But like now I have other things. I have momentum in my life of just this clarity, and that North Star and those in a clear mind is something that I've kind of, that's where I live most of the time. So when I come out of there now, it's noticeable. Whereas in the past, I was so foggy all the time. If I had a moment of clarity, I was like, oh my gosh, like that was that first moment with the San Pedro for me.
So yeah, like what you said earlier about being exhausted, being yourself, I think all of us on this show can go, yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
Yep,
Being
Right.
I feel
exhausted.
that.
Now, let me ask you this, because this is an area that me and Sabrina are very interested in, and where she and I relate, because Sabrina is a practicing witch, and I'm kooky, and both of us are very into ritual. If you want to say magic, sure. I think it's psychology, but whatever. We approach things from a very spiritual, metaphysical way.
Nice.
Uh, like for example, very few times, and I don't tell Dylan because he's a creepy agnostic, but there are a few shows where I will.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I will open up a circle for certain shows, because I know that there are implications that are far-reaching, and this is one of those shows where I've opened a circle. So I've been to, and that's why I wanted to go to a ritual environment before partaking. So I've been to yours, and from my understanding, because we've had private discussions about, me setting up a ceremony room or a ceremony area for men who need healing. Uh, the ritual that you went to in Berkeley, I'm assuming that it was completely custom to the medicine man or shaman that was there, and you tweaked it to your own personality whenever, for example, people like myself came to your retreat.
Right. Exactly. So the person who was offering medicine in Berkeley is now my sister's husband. So she, it's sort of been introduced to me in a family setting as well. And I really, really love my sister's husband. His name is George Bertelstein. And in Berkeley, California, they have a Native American church called Medicine Path Native American Church, and you can find them online. And I think due to COVID, they haven't offered ceremonies in over a year, but um, in the past, they were offering these medicine ceremonies about almost every weekend on a Saturday. So when I was going out to California sort of as often as I could as a single mom on the other side of the country, to participate in these ceremonies because they were so helpful to me. But at a certain point, it became clear, like, I can't keep going back across the country. I don't have the money, I don't have the time. And also, although I love all those people and they're sort of what felt like my spiritual community, like, I want to ground this in my real life. I live in Athens, Georgia, and I want my spiritual community to be here with me. So, because I feel like that was real clear to me at the time. Like, a lot of folks particularly that time, 10 or 15 years ago, people were traveling out of the country a lot to South America to participate in San Pedro and ayahuasca ceremonies. And there's a lot more of that being offered in the United States now. But in the past, the combination, it was such an epic experience. Like, you're getting on an airplane, you're going to another country, it's different culture, it's a different language. And you just, all of it is this beautiful, but what becomes like pageantry associated with your healing. And I really wanted to normalize that. I'm like a white lady in Athens, Georgia. I drive a minivan. Like, I want my people to be sitting around the, ceremonial fire with me, just because they're the people of my life. I don't want to feel like I'm escaping this, or, you know, it felt more real. Like, I was I asked my brother-in-law for permission to offer ceremonies in this sacrament, and he gave it to me. And then it was just on, Danielle, just like it will be for you if you do. You're like, oh, well, what am I going to do? And nobody's really going to tell you. So yes, they can't, but I did imitate the best that I could the way that my brother-in-law offered his ceremonies. But it really is so much about the person who is doing it, and how you are. And you're opening yourself. At that time, the language that was real easy and for me, and I felt it real strongly, was like, I want to be a hollow bone. Like, I felt like I know the basics of how I'm going to hold this ceremony. I felt like I was going to keep everybody safe. And but I also knew that I would be having the medicine in me, and I would make myself a vessel, a hollow bone. So, like, even though Megan Baer pre-ceremony doesn't really know exactly, you never know what's going to happen. You don't really know what you're going to do, what you're going to say, but you know that with the aid of that sacrament, that you will be guided. And it's a big leap of faith. So yes, I definitely did. For a long time, I tried my best to do things the way I thought my brother-in-law George was. And after a while, I was like, well, I'm so honored that I learned this beautiful ceremony from men, because I had always been a very female-centered woman, and my life was surrounded by women. And I was like, I love that I learned this beautiful ceremony from these beautiful men. And I'm me. And at some point, I stopped trying to do it as much like they did. And I was like, oh, I see. This is just every medicine person for themselves, for sure. You're listening to that sacrament, and that's the important thing, is to let it guide you, and to not be rigid with something that you were told, because the information is being downloaded in the now. So even though we did try to honor a lot of historical traditions, it's important to keep it new and fresh and live, because that's all these plant medicines want to help you with. I think all of them.
And I think for me, that's why I think that the ritual nature of it is so important, because I know, in my personal experience, these plants do have spirits that are associated with them. They're very distinct. Like, for example, the San Pedro plant is a very, as they said before I actually partook, was it has a very grandfatherly feel, and it will gently show you your shit, but will tell you to get your shit together. So it's like, and not just San Pedro, but other plant-based medicine like psilocybin, where I have looked at people who they don't get initiated into it through a spiritual or ritual aspect, and it doesn't have the same effect on them. That's what I observe. Like, you see people who partake of it just recreationally, and from my experience, I just don't see them getting the same amount of benefits as someone who does approach it from a spiritual place. But what I wanted to know was, before you actually got into this world, were you a spiritually minded person? Did you live every day in a state of Zen, or did that kind of evolve after you were introduced to San Pedro?
Oh my God, I love that question. Wow. I mean, I had, when I was a young woman, like 19, 20, I definitely immersed myself in sort of goddess and pagan witch culture. And, I did start my young adult life in that footing. And then, and then I lived my life. I don't know. I felt so encumbered by my negative thoughts. I don't know. I definitely didn't have Zen. I didn't have any peace in my mind ever. So But I mean, I surely was seeking that always, like wanting to feel better, and to me that's a spiritual journey. It's like whatever you call it, whatever the flavor is, it's like what are we looking for? You know, that feeling of deep peace. Guess what? It feels really good. I think if you don't feel good and you're looking for something, it's like you're looking to feel better. You know, there's something more for you. There is something more for you. There's really good feelings, and that is, you know, the state of the moments of enlightenment that we get. It just feels fantastic, you know, and we're meant to feel them. It's not meant to be like a once in a lifetime thing. It's like, how about once a day? How about several times a day? You know, how about you touch in that? How about you build that practice so that it's just frequent. You understand that that's your birthright. And one of the wonderful things about being a human being, it's like, yeah, you get to experience just the wonder of being a human being on this earth. It just freaking amazing. So when I think of spirit, so that language, I don't even know what to do with it anymore. Am I a spiritual person? I don't know. I know I'm a full human being. But but I was suffering so much, you know,
Right.
at that time.
So I know for me, and Sabrina can jump in at any point because I know that, you know, she's a witch, so she does ritual stuff too. But I was practicing a lot of spiritual stuff prior to getting into this world. But what I found was like the gurus that you talked about in that last podcast was it took years in silent, still meditation to get to the spot to where plant-based medicine will just it's the super highway, man. It'll take you right there to that place. So uh, I mean, that's what it did for me. It was like hooking the spiritual foundation blocks of what I'd already built up until meeting you, and then hooking it up to a power generator, right? To where the internal spiritual work that I knew I needed to do, now I had a way of condensing a lot of time into a short amount of time, you know? And so it tremendously helped my spiritual path. But for people who don't know, because I don't even think we've mentioned it yet, San Pedro, could you explain where the name San Pedro comes from and what, in your experience, the nature of that plant is whenever somebody who's going to take it for the first time?
I cannot. Don't you love me so much? No, I mean, I don't know. I've never been somebody who knows a lot of the great stories behind things. In terms of the name, I don't know anything about it. I can tell you that, and it's interesting too, because I had heard that um, San Pedro was the grandmother and peyote was the grandfather, but I have also heard it called the grandfather. So anyway, I was introduced to it as an elderly, benevolent female spirit, and the way I think that my sister described it to me is that it's heart opening and mind quieting, and that sounded like something that I could use some of, you know. And those are the words that I would use to describe it to anybody who is looking for either the microdose experience or a larger ceremonial dose experience. Is like, yeah, it can help you with that. It can help you quiet your mind and open your heart. And
Yeah. Now, so whenever you did your ceremonies, it was certainly not microdosing. I think I took 3 doses, and that was pretty. I mean, I'm not going to say it was. It's not. I'm glad that I started off with San Pedro because for me, in that world of plant-based medicine, it's kind of like the best entryway because it doesn't freak you out, you know, but it does bring stillness. And I've said this so many times, our society is suffering from collective post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
that's been a theme of every show we've done this
Interject
year.
something here on the idea of peacefulness when we're partaking in these wonderful medicines. It really heavily depends on your company because your company can mess up your experience so bad. Just putting that out there.
I would agree. I
yeah.
agree with that. That's why I think it's important for like a ritual setting for most,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to do it correctly.
Well, if you're going to do it with other people who, right? Because I really enjoyed the group setting for these healing ceremonies for a long time because of the intimacy that engendered between the participants, and so that, like you and me, Daniel, like once you've been in one of these ceremonies with somebody, you just feel like you know them straight to their core, and if you're ever going to see them again, because sometimes you don't, you just it's a reminder. It's like people out there, people at the grocery store, and I used to say, like, people in my school pickup line, if you've had a ceremony with them, you just look at them and it's a reminder to you of that truth that you knew together, the truth of who you really are. And but at this time in my life, I can really understand why people don't want to do group setting ceremonies, because sort of what Sabrina's saying, it's like the wild card of just other people's energy, and it really is the deep inner work that we're going for. So if you're going to a group ceremony, you just want to know that these people, the leaders, are going to, you want to have a feeling about them that you would trust them in this type of environment, that they're going to keep things really good and really peaceful for you and for everybody. Because I have never had any type of strange or weird experience with the San Pedro, even though sometimes I had difficult feelings come up. Compared to other psychedelics, as Daniel was pointing out, San Pedro, I felt like I never lost that sense of who I am. I never felt like disembodied or not myself. I felt more myself. Like, I am still me. This is definitely my body, definitely my mind, but much softer. But some people I've been in ceremonies where people have a difficult time, and it's important for whatever reason. And sometimes there's levels of mental illness that are getting triggered, and it's like you want to have a ceremonial leader in a group setting who is equipped. And that's just something that you're probably going to have an intuition about.
Right, right. Now, when when we spiritualists have to be undercover, we say a trip sitter because it sounds more secular, but it's like get a shaman. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, as if you
uh,
guys are trying to sound secular.
wrong. But getting back to what you said, that was another thing that I found profound about San Pedro was, you know, and I've had two small groups here, men only, to do psilocybin ceremonies. And a lot of what I've done in those two small ceremonies was I based it completely off of yours for the most part, but said, how can I throw Radiohead and Pink Floyd somewhere in there? You know what I mean? Like,
As any good hippie does.
Right,
it's
naturally.
right. It's like, okay, at your ceremony, there was Native American singing, so we're going to do Tom York and Roger Waters at mine. So, right, it'll work.
I don't partake, but good choices.
I know, right? But one of the things I noticed is in our before we actually partook of the medicine, you had a briefing with all of us, and this is something that I found so critical to what I'm doing is you gave a briefing. You told all of us what to expect, and for me that was so beneficial because I was scared out of my mind that I was, all those dare videos that you see in elementary school. I was
Oh,
like, I could jump out of a window, I could think that spiders are all over me, but you took the time to be like, dude, man, just chill out. It's not like that. And if you need anything, we're here. And for the most part, we were silent most of the day. I mean, there wasn't much talking. There wasn't that much sharing. It sounds like it would be completely boring, but it was. You're in a room with complete strangers for the most part, in a lot of silence under the influence of this medicine. However, at the end of the day, when we all sat down to have dinner together, you knew everyone at that table more than you knew your family members, and you barely exchanged a word the entire day, but you
right,
knew those people.
right.
And and that's why I'm so passionate about this is because that's what the world needs, man. Is
Oh,
is
yeah. Yeah, it really helps people let down their guard. It is interesting. So at the end of our day-long ceremonies, we would always share a meal. People would bring a dish, and it's called a wopala, and we would, something to really look forward to, because like Daniel said, spend the day mostly quiet. And when you try to describe the ceremony to someone who hasn't sat there, it's like, yeah, it seems like something you wouldn't want to do. But trust me, when that sacrament is in your body, it seems perfectly natural to sit there quietly all day. It's just stuff is happening. It's just inside you, and it's really great. And you're staring at the altar, which is really beautiful, and the candles, and we keep smudges going. And there's as much songs as we have song keepers that day. And depending, sometimes the doors or windows open, you hear the birds and the wind, and sometimes it's too hot to do that or too cold. So all of those things, it's very intimate. It's very intimate. And as I just also thought that was very valuable to people. I mean, to myself for sure, and to everybody who came, because so much of our life is spent sort of generally feeling like if anybody really knew us, we would not be loved. It's like we're hiding out, we're scared that we're unlovable in whatever version of a story that we have about that. And when you sit with the sacrament in your body all day, it sort of just melts you, and everybody's being melted in that way, in such an intimate fashion that you really wouldn't find made in any other situation, except there may be one, but this is uh, so right. So everybody sort of feels like family at the end of the day. And I used to say, like, sure, we don't want to sit around talking about. I tried not to let people talk at all until much later in the day when the medicine had worked with them for a bit, because, like Sabrina was pointing out, um, it,
I
it
sorry, I was just gonna say I really struggle not to talk. That would be tough.
well, Dylan, it would just be different. It's like you can't imagine it. I mean, you can imagine that it's just you feel different. So I'm also a very talkative person, and I enjoyed the taking a day off from that, because the sacrament just kind of it just does something to you that changes. You're out of your normal thing, but at the same time, if a person were to start talking at the beginning of the ceremony in their normal fashion, like, here's the thing that's bothering me, here's my problem, here's what my parents did to me, and to talk about that throughout the ceremony, it would inhibit other people's experience and their own. So what we tried to encourage is, look, you're going to have an opportunity to share towards the end of this ceremony. Um, and but for the moment, for a long time, we're going to be listening to this medicine. Um, is sort of the way that we talked about it, so that by the time we let people talk, we hoped that they were having something new to say. And like, it was real important, every single person who ever shared during one of these ceremonies, that just hundreds of people every time. And Daniel, I wonder what your feeling is about this. Somebody shared about their life, no matter who they were or what sex they were, what race or religion. When they would share their life experience, it always felt like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, it was so useful to a human being to go like, oh my God, I am not crazy. This is a human being situation. Like, this person feels it. This person feels it. Like, we're all just so human. There's nothing wrong with me, actually.
Yeah, we all got clutter in the basement, but I think one of the things that was beneficial for me, and I know a lot of people who are called to plant-based medicine like this, they do suffer from anxiety or PTSD or any disorder that comes from being stuck in the hamster wheel of fight or flight. And when you're in fight or flight, you don't trust people. You don't, you do withdrawal within yourself. And for me, like the plant-based medicine going into San Pedro with complete strangers, it gave me the
Right.
relief from the choke around my soul that other people aren't necessarily trying to get you, dude. You know,
Oh,
that
so
like
nice.
you don't have to be the deer constantly hearing the twig snap. You can be the deer kind of frolicking, and it allowed that. But I do remember, I know we're coming up on a break, and then I want Sabrina to kind of jump in a little bit more. But I do remember, like, because you did allow us to, you allowed it. We took breaks, between the doses, and I think after the first dose, we went outside, and you had a beautiful yard, and I remember in bare feet when I touched the ground, the grass. It was like that scene from the Matrix Revolutions when he's blind, but as he steps, he can see the ripples of gold.
Oh
You know what I
yeah.
mean? When I first stepped outside and saw the green of the grass and felt the vibration of the earth, I distinctly remember looking up at this tree with a spider web and this beautiful spider. And I was like, I didn't think it, I didn't believe it, but I knew me and that spider are one. Me and that tree, we're one. Me and, you know what I mean? Because you could feel everything vibrating back towards you.
Right,
And
right.
it's nothing like, somebody like Dylan has in their head that you're going to freak out and lose control. It's actually it's our natural state, if you
It's
ask
very
me.
soft. Yeah, I agree. It's like well, I mean, it is plant enhanced, but I do feel like it is a level of perceiving vibration that is available to us with practice without the plant medicine as well. Sure.
Right. Like for me, for me, the best way I can describe it is when I was a kid, I'm very imaginative anyway, so I was always just enthralled with grass, playing with grass like a toy. But plant-based medicine reverts me back to that childlike, everything is so fascinating and everything is okay. Everything's okay. So I don't know. I think it's time for a quick break. It's probably going to be CannaSense as the ad. It's going to be CannaSense, Dylan.
Yeah, yeah. Check out this ad from Cannabis, and we'll be back with more hippie shit in a minute.
Perfect.
Medical cannabis is now legal by telemedicine. Get the medicine you need by getting reviewed for a medical cannabis card. Contactless appointments available at cannasense.com. For as low as $39, you can get reviewed for a medical cannabis card. That's cannasense.com for a licensed medical cannabis doctor review. Cannasense.com has all the information you need to get connected with a doctor for a $39 medical cannabis appointment. CANNASENSE.com. CannaSense is common sense.
All right, we paid some bills. Now we're back. So, hippie shit, that's rough, dude.
Is it inaccurate though?
I don't know. Is it? I don't know if it's. No, it's not accurate. You're wrong. You're whatever, dude. You're a street.
What isn't hippie about it?
That's for another day. Anyway, so we're back. We're talking with Megan Baer, and Sabrina is here, even though she's been a little mousy. But for this one, yeah, I wanted to talk more about because you're outnumbered, Dylan, and all of us are spiritualists here, or however you want to define what we are. We live less in the material left brain world than most, and one of the things that I have recognized and respect is that in the bigger scheme of things, there is more acceptance of, especially down here in the South, and Sabrina and Megan can both attest. And when you live in the Bible Belt and you practice anything weird, it can be difficult sometimes. But
Oh yeah, they've only got one sky god that they like.
whatever. But society around here anyway has become a little bit more in the past few years, more accepting of alternative ways of expressing your worship. And um, I have always respected the feminine aspect of spirituality. And so the two of you are both females. Figure we figured that out, Dylan. But if you
We
could,
really are geniuses. We were talking
Very
about
smart.
kind of Sherlock earlier. We really are.
yeah, dude. So, yeah, if you could, the two of you discuss, like, for one, how does this plant-based medicine assist you I mean, it's still a man's world, and I'm not advocating that, but how does it help you to not kill men, for lack of better phraseology?
I mean, why do you think I buy so much? In my order.
Do you though, Sabrina? I don't know if we've ever really talked about it, but whenever you do ritual work, do you consciously incorporate plant-based medicine with it, or is it just go hand in hand?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, I feel like it's just always there. I mean, especially since CannaSense launched, it was never really an issue of picking and choosing when I went about getting supplies or medicinal, however you want to phrase it, depending on your need at the time. So since CannaSense, it is just always there. And what it's more become is since I do like to get a different kind every time I go into the apothecary, which has been like a huge success for me. I've tried everything that's come through there to this day. But there'll be like a special kind that I'll be like, oh my God, that strain was just like awesome. And I'll be like, who's that guy from that movie, Lord of the Rings? You know, the real ugly dude is all like, my precious. Yeah.
Smeagol.
No lie, I will get like that with a strain that works for me because everybody loves me when I have the strain that works for me. So I'm like, y'all don't want me not to have this all to myself.
Awkward silence.
I noticed that.
I was trying not to. I was trying not to fill it, but
So how do I not kill men? I don't know. And maybe it's that I don't really want to go to jail and I don't want to fight the police to not go to jail. So try not to kill people. I don't know.
Right. Well, I know,
that
like,
is strong motivation.
Right?
like I know
Nope.
you and I, like, we'll exchange little, little tips and tricks for altar work or for spell work or whatever you want to call it, psychological work, whatever. From time to time, we'll do that because I think, we know how to arrange our homes in certain ways to best utilize the energy of the Uberverse, But for me, I know, like, fortunately, I live alone, so I can't get committed. But when I have a really good strain of cannabis or psilocybin or another plant-based medicine, and the music is good and the candles are lit and the incense is burning, it takes you right where you need to be for that work.
I will say though, if you have the wrong mother loving company, it can take you to a new level of I will kill this mother if he doesn't stop.
This is why it's important to have ritual with it.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Very important to have ritual with it, which, I don't know. Don't want to get too far off of that. We have Dylan with us and he's gonna think we're all Satanists or something. But but no. So, I mean, I think it is kind of ironic, as Megan was saying earlier, that she went to Berkeley and was trained by men, and then I showed up at her place and was kind of trained by her, and this was in the early stages of Cannasense too. You remember, Bree? This is before Cannasense was doing what it was doing. So it was like, to me, I like to see the bigger picture in things, and it's like, you're right, Sabrina. I mean, the collective is bigger than all of us who are involved with it, and it has tremendous. I mean, it's made available in the Bible Belt. It's made an avenue available for anyone here to get access to it. With protection that comes from the Legal Defense Fund and all that good stuff. But when I think back, I go, one of the main turning points of my role within the collective was after I left Megan's first ceremony.
Yeah, you did do a lot of talking about that to the point where I was like, well, I want to go. And you're like, okay, we're going to go. And then like that time came and we didn't go. And then you're like, no, we're going to go. We're going to go. And I was like, okay, we're going to go. We're going to go. And we didn't go that time either. And then I don't even know what happened after that. If I just kind of, said, whatever.
Yeah, and I know Megan you probably got frustrated with me, Megan, because I know we did some email exchanges where I was like, when are you having your next ceremony? Because I got to bring my friend Sabrina with me. And
I
never.
remember that. I
Do
know.
you?
I was looking forward to you both coming together. But it's like that's just how life is. I'm not even offering ceremonies right now, and it was the center of my life for a decade. So, well, Sabrina, I really stopped before that. It just as swiftly as I picked it up because it was the 100% right thing for me to do, like so natural, like Daniel's feeling that calling now. And then it just felt like, oh, you know what? I don't think I want to do that anymore. It's just such a it's such a thing. It's like anyway, I was looking forward to sitting with you, Sabrina, and Daniel together, and it's just like maybe we'll meet up somewhere else to do that.
And
I
maybe I'll come and be the secular observer.
Yeah, Dylan has to come too now. It's like a pact right here. It's a podcast, Superist show pact. No, no. Well, here's another layer to that male-female exchange of this ceremonial information, which is given through experience, is that my brother-in-law, George, was taught by a woman who was a Cherokee woman Eagle Baer, who was from Georgia. And so the circle totally came back around. Like all of that community in California, they probably think that Georgia is just like, a backwoods place that nobody goes. But all that medicine started here with Eagle Baer. She was a hippie in the 60s and followed Janis Joplin across the country and ended up in California. She was willing to teach white people how to pray with the Native American pipe. And then the San Pedro and peyote sacraments came from other medicine people. But he learned a lot about his ceremony and how to lead it from this woman. And then he taught a woman, and then I taught a man. And isn't that cool? Because for me, I had a lot of issues with men when I came to that ceremony. And so it was very healing to be in that state of vulnerable, like we're saying, like you're melting, it's intimate, your guard is down, but it doesn't feel weird to have your guard down and like it normally would in that kind of setting. It feels natural. Your guard can come down, and you're doing it in being protected by men. It was really men who behaved very well. And what we're saying here is like, because here we are sitting with Daniel and Dylan, who are obviously really great men. So we don't want to say that there's something wrong with men. It's just that there does seem to be a lot of bad behavior going on with the men. I'm sure that, and there's I know about the bad behavior going on with women. So we all were just trying to like do better, and to sit in one of these sacred ceremonies together. Dylan, for example, if you take any of the spirituality out of it, we were just trying not to be a-holes, like we were
Right.
just trying to figure out how to be together in a good way.
And that's something that, yeah, I can't, and I don't want to argue with that. But, but no, I mean, I think, yeah, there is bad behavior taught to men and women. There's bad behavior taught by society in different ways to both of them. And kind of breaking that is half the battle.
Yeah, toxicity does not discriminate.
No, the toxicity is different. The
It's
male toxicity and female toxicity are two different brands of toxicity.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, they certainly manifest in different ways, but it's the same symptoms.
Yes.
Yeah, it's right. It's people who are cut off from their well-being and just behaving badly out of pain. And and so if we can, each one of our healings is helping everyone in that way. Just to be around people who are a half step ahead of you is what I was doing for a long time, that I found really, really helpful. It's like just show me where to put my foot down next.
And the synchronicity, I love synchronicity because I love the breadcrumbs of the Uberverse, And Megan, I don't know if you know this, but if you ever hear me or Dylan drop the name Stan, that's my name for God, Stan Lee. I just call God Stan Lee. So I love to see Stan Lee's fingerprints on things with the whole, somebody from Georgia goes to California, and then they get taught by a man, and then they come back to Georgia, and then they teach a man, and that it's something that me and Sabrina can relate to, because there's one thing that me and Sabrina can attest to, is that over our friendship, whenever we're in close proximity, I think it's because of the stuff we tap into, weird tornadoes of synchronistic events happen to such a glaring degree where complete atheists even notice it and say something about it.
That's awesome.
So Daniel, now you're going to have to teach a woman, right? You got to keep the trend going.
I'll put that on my to-do list. I'll put that on my to-do list. But no, I mean, I have made the decision that as far as my home goes, I will only do a ceremony with men for right now. If there is another like a female medicine woman present, then I would open it up. But until I get my legs going to where I feel completely comfortable, doing larger groups, then I think that's prudent.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I could teach you. Would that be? No, I'm just
Oh,
oh, that was
oh, you wound me.
so. Uh, so Dylan, what's your problem, man? Like, what's your apprehension with joining our cult?
Well, anything that has to be called a cult. Um, no, just kidding. So I can't really speak to any of the benefits, and I'm not going to try to argue those because those are inherently subjective experiences, and who am I to argue the results of them? That's not my place. Um, but I did a bit of reading on psilocybin. There haven't been many studies done that I could find. There were a couple, um, and most of them were not totally inconclusive. Obviously, they showed some good effects for mental health, depression, anxiety, but much of the time in the studies I read, they actually showed remission into those, regardless of whether the therapy was continued. They showed a reversal of the trend after a little bit of time, and a lot of the studies also showed heart problems in psilocybin. So I'm not going to argue the health benefits of cannabis because that's been well documented. Um, Plenty of studies for even somebody as skeptical as I am. Plenty of studies have come out showing all of the different health benefits, the minimal amount of risks. Just because I don't partake doesn't mean that I don't fully see the benefits there. Psilocybin, I'm a bit more skeptical of. So, uh, Megan, you convince me.
Well, I'm sorry, Megan. I don't mean to interrupt, but for both Sabrina and Megan, um, just so we're clear, like I entered into psychedelics through San Pedro, but I've gone much further than that. Uh, Megan, have you only stuck to San Pedro, or have you utilized other avenues of psychedelics? And the same question goes for Sabrina. So Megan first.
I have used psilocybin. I mean, when I was younger, I tried recreational use of psilocybin and LSD and did not have a great time. And in recent years, I've really enjoyed the microdose of psilocybin, sometimes combined with like a cannabis oil, and just a very teeny amount. So I'll pick it up with my fingernail. I really like it in that amount. As it talks to you. It's just like really, I just love it. The personality and the help and the use that I get from that. And that's it. Oh, peyote. But not any ayahuasca, and I don't have any intention to go back to the LSD. But to each their own for sure. And I'm not someone who would want to recreational use any of those things at this time because I'm just having too much fun without them. And the risk factor of having not a good time is not is too much for me.
Sabrina, which ones have you partaken of?
So mostly the cannabis, but I recently tried the psilocybin mushrooms. Is that what they're called?
Mhm.
And yeah, that was the one where I firmly grounded myself in company matters. I would have had a great experience if it wasn't for the company that I was with.
Now
Yeah.
I'm gonna beat you up a little bit here because this is why I said before we ever even offered it in the apothecary, I said your first trip's got to be here.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
up a new first trip.
Anyway,
Yes, new
continue.
beginnings.
I love the idea. Yeah.
So for you, it's just been cannabis and psilocybin so far?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I had one experience with LSD like way back, probably when I was like, what, 18? You know? And at the time, I may not have realized how horse-like I was built. And like, I actually require a good full dose for you to affect me. So at the time, I just kind of like watched my friends act silly. And so I was like, yeah, yeah, this is cool stuff. Look at all these weird things I'm seeing. And I really didn't know if that was like the proper response. I was just gauging by what they were doing. And for all I know, they were faking it too. Those fucking fakes. Ah, shit, I fucking cursed.
Oh,
Oh, you did it again.
did it again.
That's
I'm
two of
doing
your three.
so
That's
good.
two or your three.
Two of your three. Um, so I don't know if any of you can speak to this, but when I think of taking any of this, what I think of, and this might be totally unfair, have any of you um, been put under using gas anesthesia going into a hospital?
I was once, but I was like 10 years old. I couldn't tell you. I went to sleep. They said count backwards from like 100, and I got to like 99 and was out. And I was sure I was still counting when I woke my eyes up, but they were like, hey, we're done. And I was like, just went to sleep.
Well, see, I've had that experience, but then I've also had the experience of going numb and then all of the doctors' heads become disembodied and the background becomes flashing colors and
Wow. They
flash
give you.
yeah, and blaring sounds, and it really it felt everything like heard acid trips or psychedelic trips described as. And I don't know if that's fair, but I am somebody who doesn't like having my consciousness altered at all. After that experience with the anesthesia, anytime I've had it offered to me since, I've declined. When I had my wisdom teeth pulled out, I elected to get the needles, the 12 needles in the mouth, instead of get put under with the gas, because I don't like my consciousness being altered. So that's sort of my hang up.
I'll ask this of Dylan and then kick it over to Megan. Would you say, Dylan, that you are trepidatious about having your consciousness altered or losing control of your consciousness?
Um, I think it might be a bit of both. I definitely don't want to lose control. That's absolutely there. Um, but this world is weird and this reality is strange, but it's what I know and it's what's safe. And being altered into something completely different, yeah, I'm a bit trepidatious about that.
As a medicine woman, Megan, how would you address like that concern from somebody?
Well, I mean, I just think definitely Dylan should do what he wants and not anything he doesn't want to, because there's no, it's not for everyone. There's so many paths, and Dylan seems like he's got it all together and he knows what he likes and what he doesn't like. And I'm not one of those people who's like, you should push yourself out of your comfort zone. I think you should stay in your comfort zone and let life come to you
Or
in
the
Well,
a
rest of us.
sweet,
well,
happy way.
if you think I've got it all together, then man, I am a good actor. Um,
You give him too much credit.
Well, I can tell you're a very thoughtful person and very sensitive, and I like everything that I'm hearing. And you know, uh, yeah, I don't take gas at the dentist because that is not a setting where it totally freaks me out too, Dylan. I don't have the visual stuff, but I get drunk super fast and I tell people all kinds of personal business. And
oh yeah, no, I
I'm
did not
cool.
want that experience.
Yeah, no, I don't do that
Oh,
either. Yeah, I
no,
just the
eh,
San Pedro is soft and gentle though, and like I was describing earlier, for people who want to get shot out into the universe and experience other realms, this is not the plant medicine for them. But it really does bring you more into a feeling of yourself, which is interesting, huh? I mean, I think if you were at all interested, this might be a really gentle experience for you to have. Like, you're not going to feel like you're losing control and you're not going to feel like you've left this realm, because I just thought it's not useful for me to leave this realm. And I'm not talking bad about any other plant medicines, but when I hear about ayahuasca, and mainly I hear really great stories about how it has helped people, and there are very particular particularities about how that plant communicates with human beings. And it's a lot of imagery from the jungle where it comes from, where I do not live, and from other potentially other realms where I also don't consciously live. And I want help being me, in this lifetime, in this neighborhood, in my stage of life, all the time, me, because anything more, wild than that is just, it kind of gets, sometimes it can get lost into translation. So I wanted to feel like myself getting softer, being more comfortable in my own skin is like really something that I got a lot of help with from this plant medicine.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I kid on the air a lot about it, but whenever me and Dylan talk about it privately and with certain individuals that I'm working with one on one who have a lot of trauma in their life, when it comes to the issue of other plant-based medicine beyond cannabis, one in particular person I'm working with, they said, I'm just not ready for that. And I go, then it's not your time. It's not calling you yet. When,
Yeah,
you know,
sorry.
it will call you when you're ready for it. It's very polite in that way. And when you're ready for it, this is what I typically say, you know where to come, and I approach it very seriously when I'm not, where on stage, so to speak, with this. But yeah, I mean, being recovering from alcohol abuse syndrome specifically, um, there is a there's a vast difference between numbing yourself and, like Megan continues to say, with plant-based medicine, feeling yourself, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I can't obviously speak to the benefits, so that's why whenever we've talked about CannaSense or psilocybin, that's why I've never personally like advocated for it. That's why I'm not in the collective, because it's not something that I don't like advocating for things that I haven't experienced. And that's not something I don't know. I am much more likely, I think, in the next 10, 20, 30 years, I am much more likely, I think, to try cannabis because even as uh, even just absent of the high and the altered mental state, I think I'm much more likely to try it because of all of the documented health benefits. Like, I'm not at all skeptical of the health benefits with cannabis like I am with other plant-based medicine. Cannabis has a long history of peer-reviewed studies bearing out its results.
The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. So even if I don't advocate for it and even if I don't personally push for it, if people want to use it, I don't see any reason not to. If you want to do it, I see no reason for you not to if you're legally able to.
Yeah, and I know, like, and you guys who are on this call who are in the collective have gotten my newsletters. Like, I was so excited when we finally announced that we were going to start providing things other than cannabis, like psilocybin, and hopefully in the near future, San Pedro and other plant-based medicine. Um, but I know I've sent out pointers, my own personal list of do's and don'ts and how to prepare for walking into this world, which are kind of an amalgamation of what I learned from Megan. So, Megan, for anybody who's listening who has not yet entered into this world, and they may have that little voice in the back of their head saying, "Hey, this might bring you some alleviation from suffering." What kind of steps or preparation or tips would you encourage people to implement before walking this path?
Oh yeah. Um, well, like I say, if you're scared, I say, don't do it. I mean, it's okay. Actually, I have to say for myself, I was scared before every ceremony. Like you said, you showed up to my house scared. It's like, okay, a bunch of strangers. You didn't know me from Eve, and there I was welcoming you into my home. But it's like this whole situation. Usually, people are pretty scared. But I mean, if you're terrified, it's fine. Just it's okay to stay home. But if you can get yourself there, that's what I would always tell people. Um, Look, you might have a lot of fear and strange feelings. Sometimes people had stomach aches, and sometimes I get calls the morning of ceremony telling me they couldn't come because of strange little physical, manifestations of their fear and anxiety showing up. And it's like, oh, it's okay. You just stay home. But if you can get yourself there, all these wonderful things are going to happen for you in terms of your relief. Like that fear and anxiety really dissipate the first cup of medicine. Um, and so I would say, probably I love that you give out practical information, Daniel, to people wanting to try these sacraments. And I love that the CannaSense organization is looking to make these things overt, because when they've been covert and underground, just like us experimenting with them when we were teenagers, I mean, we got so many weird things happen to us, and maybe you got, bad product and all that stuff. And it's like, we want to make them mainstream enough that you can get righteous information about them, so that more peer-reviewed studies can be happening about all of them, like, so that our friend Dylan can go like, yeah, there's, here's the information that I'm looking for, because it's fascinating, it's interesting. There are so many potential uses for these things. So, finding a community that is offering ceremonies, I would say don't be afraid to travel to the one that is calling you, to the people whose faces look nice on the internet. It's like, for me, I was so lucky that I got called into it through my family, because I had an inherent trust factor there. And so you want to feel really good on a basic level about where you're going to participate if you're traveling for a ceremony. But then you just want to kind of surrender, like, if that you're there for the help, and that particular plant, you're going there because you must have the belief that it's going to help you. So let it help you. Just try to calm down, try to get your butt into that ceremonial setting, and put that medicine in your body and let it help you. And you know, I just don't think everybody needs to try plant medicine. I'm just really glad that I was able to use it, because it really helped me get out of some situations in my head that no other thing had been able to touch. So thank goodness for these medicines.
Yeah, no doubt. And what's sad about it is there are so many people who die from overdoses from things that are professionally packaged and sent out, like big pharma stuff, and they take it because it is, it's there's a business behind it. It's professionally packaged, and I love what I do, and there's not a day that goes by where I don't either get a call or email or a text from somebody who has been, like you say, CannaSense saved our life. It literally. So it's like I I know what my role in the collective is. I'm not alone clearly, but I know what my role is, and it's like I would not have been able to be the vessel for the collective being where it's at through me if it had not been for first, like you said, getting past my fear and getting to a ceremony to be introduced to the plant. And then, after that, it was like, well, I know what my path is from for here for unforeseeable future. But I will tell you a funny story, and then I want to kick it over to Sabrina because I know we're running out of time. But just this is just for me to illustrate. After you do take the dose, or for in my case, it was 3 doses, and you do the ceremony. I had a funny story, Megan. I did not have a driver's license at the time. And when I left, like that was my main thing. My fear was, wait a second. So we're gonna go to this lady's house. We're gonna trip balls on some San Pedro I've never taken before, and then I'm supposed to drive back home. And like it was you and the others who were there helping you with the ceremony. They were like, "Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be able to drive. You'll be fine." And I'm like, I really don't know if that's true. Like, and then I see people driving off, and I'm like, okay. Well, after the ceremony of the full day, I was completely fine. I had not a fear in the world of getting in the back behind the wheel of my dad's Silverado and driving, from Athens back to Warner Robins. But what was funny about it was with no license, and I'm a Second Amendment guy, so if you see me, generally I have a weapon or more on me, and I had my cannabis medicine with me. We got stopped at a roadblock. Megan, after we left your house, have I ever told you this?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Oh, it was brilliant. There's a roadblock up ahead, and I'm driving with no license, a loaded 357 Magnum, and like a half an ounce of cannabis in the truck. And I'm like, oh, it's a roadblock. And the person that was with me was like freaking out.
Dude, I would be so paranoid to drive with you.
Do you know what happened, Dylan? This is literally what happened. Megan was talking about strange occurrences in the negative, but this is in the
Ooh, tell
positive.
us.
It was literally like the Obi-Wan Kenobi on Mos Eisley. It was literally like these aren't the droids you're looking for. You know what I mean?
I
So,
like that.
You were
but
dialed in.
oh my goodness, it was brilliant. I mean, I remember like, and my passenger was thinking we're going to prison, and I remember, and I'm like, I just calmly and it had to do the calmness came from the plant clearly because I was a wreck with CPTSD, but just being calm, having my heart rate at a very low level, and being able to communicate softly to the officers. It was like, these are not the droids you're looking for, and we went on our merry way. You know what I mean? And so that was a cool experience. I don't know if I ever had a chance to tell you, but that is something that the medicine offers. It's not just at roadblocks, but in life situations before
Yeah.
entering this world that were so stressful and so important and so anxiety wreaking in your body. It's like it's not that big of a deal anymore because you've had that opportunity to detach yourself so much from the emotions stored in your body, right? I go off
Mhm.
on like way creepy, like way off in Weirdville, Dylan, or
No,
No.
no,
no?
this is not Weirdville for you.
How did that for
So,
you?
but I just thought
I
that was a
did.
cool story that I don't know if I ever relayed. But yeah, it was like technically I should have been arrested, but it wasn't. So I was like, well,
Wow.
there's something to it.
There's,
Something to it.
yeah, I just think that in, yeah, there's a lot of protection. It's just like you just get sort of invisible in the goodness of it all. And I felt that way offering medicine in a small town in the South, and I was just like a normal person and I kind of looked like a soccer mom. And I was like offering these plant sacrament ceremonies out of my house and going about my merry way, borrowing eggs and sugar from my next door neighbors and having, a bunch of people come into my house, a few times a year, not every month or so, but I always felt like, this medicine, it's the message of it is so true. It's so pure. It's like I know that that I will always be blessed and protected. Like I never worried about, being in trouble or, people because I work also as a job. I'm in the court system, I work in the foster care system, and I don't tell everybody about these ceremonies in the sacrament, but I also didn't super hide it either. So, because I just felt like it. I love the Star Wars analogy. It did just feel like an invisible shield of protection. Like even if you were to talk about it, people would just nod their head and go like, "Yeah, that sounds awesome," because it is awesome, and its goodness was so permeable and so palpable. I love that story. It's very um, accurate, I'm sure, and it resonates with other experiences I've had too with that medicine after ceremonies driving home. Sorry we sent you so far, Daniel.
Oh no, there's no. I also find the irony of having to go to Athens. The name Athens. Like I find city names to be interesting, but and I know we have like 10 minutes left, but so I know we're gonna have to do this again because the topic that I do want to talk with all of you about is the criminalization aspect of this. Is like it's insane, that especially here in the Bible Belt, you almost. I mean, there's such a stigma for people who want to go this route with their life and with their well-being that it's been a mountain to climb, right, Sabrina?
Oh my gosh.
I,
Yeah.
I just want to say you're not going to have much of a debate because I think all drugs should at least be decriminalized. So
Yeah,
there won't be much of a debate there.
I agree. So we got like 10 minutes left. Megan, is there anything you want to kind of close out with and tell people where they can find you? I know you don't have like a website or anything, do you? You got like Facebook?
Yeah, I don't have a website. I think that'll be coming soon, maybe in the next couple of months. But yeah, you can find me on Facebook. Send me a friend request. I'll be your friend. My name is Megan Baer, Baer, and you can just find me. I just have a regular personal page on Facebook, but I'd be happy to accept friend requests and sharing information that I have or help you get connected. But I know Daniel's really the greatest resource of all
No.
of those, of so many things like that. Um,
I just
yeah.
dropped you a friend request.
Oh,
Yay, Dylan's gonna be my friend, and I'm already friends with Sabrina and Daniel, so we'll have a Facebook party. Have not been on Facebook as much lately as I was for a long time. It was one of my best friends, but I'm taking a small break from that right now. But I still I'm on there plenty but in the next 5 minutes I will have accepted Dylan's friend request.
Yeah.
For sure.
yeah.
I really I'm so happy to chat with all of you all. I think you're all doing a great job at being you, and thanks for being willing to look for opportunities to feel better. It's like whether it's plant medicine or the next better thought for yourself, like yay for us people who keep looking and being willing to look, right, Sabrina, for like, I think I could feel better than this. It's like if you're not walking around feeling amazing all of the time, you could be doing better. There's more happiness for you, and I'm serious about that, and I am taking that to the mat in my personal life. So
Right. And on the website thing, I know a guy, just saying.
oh,
The other
you know
thing is,
guy,
I know a guy.
it's his name Daniel.
It rhymes with it, yeah, but
Oh, that's going to be confusing for me. I'll have to think about that.
do you think you'll ever get back into hosting ceremonies?
I do not. I don't know. I just, I don't. So maybe we'll all be coming to your ceremony, Daniel. Or maybe Sabrina's going to be opening up to this. I'm guessing maybe not Dylan.
I'll sit back and watch. Maybe if you guys start freaking out, I'll get a little bit of a comedy show.
Well,
What
you
would you
guys,
host, Dylan? Is there a game? What's the fun party we're going to have at your house?
Bunko. I love Bunko.
Bunko?
What's
Okay.
Bunko?
Are you serious, guys? Serious?
I've
Oh,
never heard of
Bunko
this
is.
game.
I mean, it's the only drop some dice game that you can actually win the money of the poor saps you came with.
I'm scared. I think
I
Sabrina's
am
going to win my money.
I am
I
too. I'm
feel like I
also
have
poor.
the advantage here. Let's play.
You do.
Not
With
not only am I scared, but I'm also poor, Sabrina.
no, we're gonna find out soon because I'm gonna be up in Dylan's neck of the woods here in the near future. But so Sabrina, I was telling Megan because we know we're gonna have you back again, but you wanna tell people where they can find you? I know you take a bunch of creepy people out into the woods and in caves and stuff all the time. Did you condense the name of your group or?
Oh
Tell
gosh, no. Gosh, we're still totally, that's going to always be under revision, because you got half of the team that's like, oh, but it's so easy to find. And then you've got the other people who are like, they came up with a really great name that I don't even want to broadcast out loud just because it's that great. I'm like, let me get this copywritten first. But yeah.
Until you hammer it out, tell people what you're doing.
Oh, so essentially, I am trying to use my learning and discoveries to help other people find their way through outdoor adventures. We take people, I say we, meaning me and the voices in my head that think we're somebody special. We take the other people with their voices in their head out into the wild. We educate them on outdoor survival, primitive survival, if you would, and as well as the spiritual aspects and internal discovery. So yeah, that's not something that I actually just kind of go out and broadcast on like my own as like Sabrina Mergenthaler. This is what I do. I do it all under the name Earthbend's Adventures, which is the name of my company. Shameless plug. But yeah, that's what I do. And during the summer, my focus is kids. I love kids. I think they're misguided and have no direction and need some. So in order for me to continue loving kids in the most safest way, I mean that, I want to teach them. I want them to learn leadership skills. I want them to learn how to not put up with that bully in school, but also how not to just kind of turn around and pop him one because that's what he really deserves. But how to take that stuffing that bully is offering and turn it into something good and powerful for themselves because they know better. They're confident. But yeah, that's my goal in life, is to make the world a better place by educating young people and those who are lost how to find themselves.
Yeah, and you do a really good job, and it's been so cool to watch you build that over the past few years. And because I mean, what we all believe in is, yeah, nature does play a very important part in healing and in a spiritual path, and even in a secular path, Dylan. I mean, nature is really
Mhm.
important. And
Mhm.
I'm one day I'm going to build up the courage to go on one of your things, but I'm just like, man, she's out there with crocodiles, dude. I look at your streams and your feed, and I'm like, she just paddled by a crocodile and was like, yeah, what's up? I'm like, Sabrina can
Yeah,
keep that, but
yeah,
tell
nope.
people where they can go to acquire your services, because from what I see, I'm sticking to virtual reality for right now on some of the stuff that you do, Sabrina. But from what I see, you're allowing people to become more comfortable and empowered within nature and not freak out, which is that's a life skill. So where can people like look you up and book one of your thingamabobs where they can face crocodiles?
So you can totally find me on Facebook, Instagram, but if you want to check out my website, it's earthbendsadventures.com, and that's kind of a tricky one to hear over the podcast, I understand. So you've got Earth, like the big globe that we live on,
Mhm.
bends, like, you bend your back, bends, the Earth bends. It doesn't really bend, but it curves, and that's kind of the same thing.
Not
And
if
then
you live in the
adventures,
water.
of course, we're adventurous, so adventures. And you put it all together with a .com at the end.
Yeah, and I'm sure for the kiddies, the links will be in the boxes somewhere. Also, you are in my group within Canasense, so anybody who's listening who is dragging their feet about joining the collective, they can go to canasense.com, click on Become a Member, join the collective, and you can actually put Sabrina Black as your sponsor in the first two fields, and Sabrina will be your sponsor within the collective. Is that too much of a burden for you, Mrs. Black?
Not at all. I love having new members join the collective. I love hearing everybody's new stories too. Everybody comes to the table with a very unique story, and I think it's great that we're able to be here for them to not only listen to their story, but to help them get access to what they need to bring them that inner peace. Because not everybody's issue is going to be physical. And sometimes I think we discredit that. So that's actually a significant piece to add, I think.
Yeah. I
Mm.
mean, what one of my spiritual teachers always told me was, we're all walking each other home. That's for sure. We're all walking each other home. So I think this has been fun. It went by faster than, well, it went by as fast as I thought it was, but we're going to have to do this again, right?
Absolutely.
Yay. Yes, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So that being said, I will also say this. I did extend the $420 cannabis giveaway contest. I'm going to extend that a little bit longer. So anyone who's listening, if you want to get $420 worth of medicine out of the apothecary, be it edibles or cannabis or psilocybin, all you got to do is go to zeninthecar.com, click on cannabis giveaway, and follow the instructions. Basically, you just subscribe to everything so me and Dylan get a lot of dopamine.
Hmm.
And then we're
Give me my dopamine, whether you get medicine or not. Dopamine is good. My dopamine is good.
Yes, dopamine's good. So like, share, subscribe, and of course, the more thingamabobs that you subscribe to, the more odds you have of winning the $420 giveaway. So that being said, this has been episode 125. Dylan, you want to get us out of here?
Sure. Thank you for listening to the Super Show Ever, episode 125. We will be back soon with 2 more interviews. Stay tuned for those.
Later, taters.